Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Gates, the podcast from St. Andrews College in Aurora, Ontario, Canada. My name is John Sandham. I am an old boy and a member of the alumni and advancement team here at SAC. This is a two-part episode featuring two members of the class of 2002. If you have not had a chance to listen to my conversation with Donovan Bennett yet, it is available right now as well. As for this episode, I'm thrilled to share with you my conversation with Michael Faulds, the newly named head coach of the Western Mustangs football program, taking over for his former head coach, Greg Marshall. Michael spent 2 years at SAC, playing a vital role in his graduation year as quarterback of arguably the most successful football team in school history. Michael embraced all aspects of school life and formed bonds within the Gates that last to this day. Michael played university football first in the U.S. at Toledo, then at Western University in London, Ontario. He started his coaching career not long after graduation, first with York, then his first head coaching gig at Laurier, which lasted until the end of the 2025 season. Michael has been named U Sports Coach of the Year 3 times. Here's my discussion with proud Andrian and new head coach of the Western Mustangs, Michael Faulds.
Like many, I was an aspiring young athlete, and football happened to be my sport. And I was really hoping to garner a scholarship to the NCAA, like many athletes, whether it's hockey, basketball, football. And I grew up in Guelph. And at that time, before my grade 12 year, we knew in Ontario there was going to be a teacher strike, a work to rule. So football was being taken away, and all sports were being taken away. So for me, that wasn't possible with me trying to live to my goals and aspirations of playing major college football. So I did some research along with the help of many and realized that, the private school system was still going to have league play. So that's when I got in touch with, at the time, head coach Michelle Cameron, and quickly got familiar with St. Andrews College and the league they played in with UCC and St. Mike's and, many others at the time. So that's how I came about, deciding SAC was where I wanted to play in grade 12 and then again in OAC, which we had at the time, and very quickly fell in love. Obviously, the adjustment for me was being a boarder. I hadn't lived away from home. So at 16, moving away from home, but very quickly within Flavel House and with many great teachers and coaches and, future friends within and around the team, it became a home away from home. And I really enjoyed my time here.
Being in sort of that specialized position as you were quarterback, it just had to be the right fit though, didn't it? It couldn't just be, okay, this is something that I want to pursue. They had to be looking for someone in your position. There had to be a fit with that. Am I right? Suggesting that?
For sure. Like I was pretty confident in my abilities. I was Team Canada quarterback at the time. So Coach Cameron and Coach Shrimpton and everyone a part of the staff was quite excited about me joining. But, I was humble in my approach, realizing I had to learn the SAC way and, the system here. But we did so very quickly in training camp that year. And, I had some great offensive weapons around me. My best buddy, Donovan Bennett, was in the backfield behind me. I had a receiver like Brad Smith, who I got to throw to, who happened to be my roommate in my first year in Flavel House. And protecting me was the Manigat twins, which many people remember, Ali and Olivier, and what great young men they were. And they actually lived across the hall from Brad and I. So very quickly, before school even started, I had a bunch of best buddies, and that helped that transition.
You talked about kind of learning the way here. What was the state of the program at the time when you joined, and how did that evolve over the course of your time here?
Yeah, I think it was, we didn't have the rosters that you see some places now, some high schools now. So we almost had to dedicate half the practice to offense, half the practice to defense. Some people went both ways. Burkett, our fullback, played, linebacker and played fullback. The Manigat twins, as I mentioned, played both ways. So it was a little bit different for the coaching staff in that point. And then I would say, a big transition for me was coming from a public high school in Guelph, where there were less rules, to a place like St. Andrews, where we had study hall and we had chapel and we, had to do the military aspects of it. So I very quickly fell in love with all of that. And it's really helped shape me as a person today, just how organized I am, my demeanor, my time management skills. So I'm very thankful of that. But at 16, that did take some adjustments.
You've talked about some of the things that you're grateful for now looking back on it, but I want to take you all the way back to 2000. There's so much focus placed on other aspects other than football. I suppose when you come here, it's the boarding aspect, as you suggested. There's the leadership aspect. What were some of those things that maybe you liked at the time or you didn't like at the time?
Yeah, well, I would just say, I already mentioned how I was so focused on getting a scholarship to the States and playing football. It's sad to admit, but my academics was secondary. And I quickly realized, and I give a lot of credit to Courtney Shrimpton, who not only was a teacher of mine, taught history, taught political science with me, but was also my housemaster at Flavel. And we had many chats, whether it was in study hall or whether it was in class, and also being my coach. I really looked at him as my biggest mentor as I was away from home. And he helped shape me and helped gain an appreciation on the academic side of things, realizing football isn't forever. And it's important you gain some of the passion you have for your sport, put that into your academics. So I give a lot of credit to him. And it came very true to me in that first year because I tore my ACL in the 4th or 5th game. So football was taken away from me. And many people might have even thought, Michael transferred here because of football. Football's now taken away with a significant injury. Is he going to leave? And I didn't think of that for 1 second. In that, 6 weeks to 8 weeks before the injury that I was here in Aurora and on campus, I was in love with this place and I was committed to staying here and doing my rehab and getting better here.
Okay, you've mentioned some names already. So let's run over some of them because these are all-stars, not just in the present moment, but looking back on it as well. You've got a guy like, as you said, DJ Donovan Bennett, who featured, and we'll talk about him kind of later on as well, featuring at Western. You got Brad Smith, who of course played in the CFL for some time. These are some all-star names kind of in the grand scheme of things, and you had them all playing right there with you on your team. That's got to be a big boost when you're going up against rivals like UCC.
Yeah, 100%. And I always say that even to our quarterbacks at Laurier or quarterbacks in general. There is a microscope on that position, but ultimately, if you take a step back, you're just the facilitator. So my center, his job every play was to touch the ball first and get the ball to me, which, as the quarterback, you're the second person to touch the ball on every offensive play, but you don't want to end up with the ball. My whole goal, whether it was Paul Perrier, Brad Smith, or Donovan Bennett, was to get the ball to them and many others and be the facilitator. So that took a lot of pressure off of me. And once I got comfortable and familiar with the system offensively, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, we were very talented. We did have some great battles with both St. Mike's, UCC, Ridley College had a team at the time. Trinity did. A lot of fun. And I remember those games fondly.
Well, let's talk about that second season because you did mention the injury in the first, but then the second, you go undefeated on your way to the CISAA championship and then playing in front of quite a few Andrians, fellow students at the Golden Horseshoe Bowl at the SkyDome. That's got to be pretty cool for an 18, 19-year-old.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I think we knew we had a good team. So in my time here as the starter, I never lost a game. We were 4-0 that first year. And then unfortunately, the injury kind of derailed it all. So I was extremely focused with Ron Hilaire at the time, who's, helped me with my injury, that I was going to get healthy and come back the best version of myself. And I was trying to get a scholarship out of it. So as that facilitator, we had a magical run, and we were pretty dominant and we played well. We had great coaching, great play all around. And our road to that OFSAA Bowl championship wasn't an easy one. We played a good Lauren Park team. We played a great St. Mary's team from Pickering, obviously in the championship. So a lot of star-studded names on those teams, many of which that went on to play professionally. But that was a lot of fun. And as you mentioned, the SkyDome was packed, a sea of red and white. And there were some big plays in that game where you could just see the Andrian fans get on their feet. And we had quite the celebration after too, at the restaurant there in the SkyDome. So it was great for the school. It was great for us coaches and, players, and something we can look back at this many years later fondly.
And I'll point out as well that you were named MVP that season, which is a great honor. You've mentioned it a few times, so let's get into that. You were focused on getting that scholarship to the U.S., and you did eventually. What was the next step after St. Andrews?
Yeah, so after St. Andrews, I like many guys now, they go on the camp circuit. So they go to various camps in the States. And that first year, I actually got offered by Rutgers in Eastern Michigan. But I actually turned them down after my grade 12 year because I wanted to come back for my OAC year. So I had a couple scholarships already lined up. But I would say, I'd admit I was a little bit egotistical at the time. I was thinking Michigan or Alabama or Florida or Georgia, like a big program. To me, Eastern Michigan and Rutgers weren't big enough. So it didn't turn out that I obtained a scholarship from one of those big programs. So I actually quickly went to a prep school in the States called Valley Forge. It was a military school outside of Philadelphia. And with the military aspects to SAC and the boarding school environment, I was actually able to deal with that environment much better than most people at Valley Forge. So that did lead to a scholarship to Toledo. So, in hindsight, was it a Michigan? Was it Ohio State? Was it a Florida, an Alabama? No. But at that time, I was old enough saying, I've got to take something and I've got to go with it. So yeah, I went to Toledo and at least I could say I garnered that scholarship as a Canadian quarterback and spent 2 years at Toledo before coming back to Canada.
Well, okay, let's talk about coming back to Canada because that's when St. Andrews sort of comes back into the picture here. Tell me about what DJ said to you and what brought you back to Canada.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Brad Smith was my roommate in my true grade 12 year here at SAC. In my OAC year, it was Donovan Bennett, who quickly became my best friend. Many years later, he was my best man at my wedding. I stood up at his wedding, and we've kept in close touch ever since. So yeah, Donovan was a running back at Western, and I was currently at Toledo, and I didn't even open up a search saying I'm coming back to Canada, nor was I really thinking it at the time. But Donovan, as he does with so many, he's great at keeping in touch with everyone. And he would touch base with me kind of monthly. And I could see he was trying to plant a few seeds. Are you ever entertaining coming back home? And Western was about to go through a quarterback change. And I heard him out. I came up and met with legendary coach Larry Haler at the time at Western. Basically, outside of Donovan Bennett, Larry Haler, and my family, no one else knew I was coming back. And, I signed on with Western and was with my best buddy again. And there were quite a few other SAC people there. In fact, my first year living at Western, it was, a household of SAC people, which was kind of neat for me. And that made that transition easier as well. And then full circle moment, Donovan actually gets hired by the Score Television Network a few years later, and his playing years were done, but mine were still going on. And he was a sideline reporter interviewing his best buddy on the Western campus. So it was kind of cool. And I give him a lot of credit. I probably wouldn't have come back to Canada and had the university career up here had I not met Donovan Bennett at SAC and him being such a great friend and keeping in touch.
Remarkable career in university football here in Canada. What do you see as some of the factors owing to that success? Was it the fact that you had this core group around you? Was it the leadership of the team at the time? What were some of those things that made you so successful at Western?
Yeah, I actually say it's the different forks on the road that I took and the different bouts of adversity that I took that made me stronger and made me the person I was at Western and the person I am today. So I actually commend people that don't take linear paths. Like a lot of people would think you could have gone, Michael, from your high school in Guelph and become the starting quarterback at Western. And that's very true. But had I not come to SAC for a couple of years, had to be a boarder, had to go through all the aspects of chapel and study hall and the military aspect. Then I went down to Valley Forge outside of Philadelphia for 6 months. Then I went to the University of Toledo for a couple of years before coming back. All of these experiences, along with the injuries of a couple ACL surgeries, and it helped shape me and made me much more resilient, made me a better leader, a better teammate, more mature, and made me the player I was then and now transitioning into the coach I am now.
You finished your playing career 2010, am I correct?
2009, yeah.
2009. And you pretty much go straight into coaching at York. So what was that always the plan? What kind of sparked that change?
Yeah, I think like many young, university athletes, you want to go pro in your sport. So I did want to go pro. I wanted to become, a CFL quarterback. We're starting to have some trailblazers right now with Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford, Canadian quarterbacks. But at the time of my journey, there weren't many. And it didn't help that in my 5th and final year at Western, I tore my ACL. So I quickly realized that my passion in life has always been football. And if I can no longer play it, well, what about let's get it into coaching? And I realized staying at Western was an option, being the quarterback coach, but I was surrounded by my buddies. And like I've done in the past with the decision to come to SAC, the decision to go to Valley Forge. I'm not about taking the easy path. And going at the time to the worst football team in the country, York University, and becoming their OC with no coaching experience was what I wanted to sign up for. So in my first year...
That challenge.
That challenge. And I am all about a challenge. So we went from the 27th out of 27 U Sport teams offense in the country in my first year to 3 years later in terms of yards per game, the 6th offense in the country. We still weren't winning a lot of games, but we were making great progress. And that kind of led to me thinking of how much more excited I am about possibly calling coaching a career I want for life. And, the stars kind of aligned with the position at Laurier opening then late in 2012 and me throwing my name in the hat, not thinking early on that I was going to get it, more thinking, let's go through this experience of going through the interview process so that future jobs, if they, come up in future years, I can put my name in those hats as well.
Am I correct that the Laurier job at the time was a similar challenge, a position of challenge, as was York?
Yeah, most definitely. So I was taken over for a legendary coach in Gary Jeffries, who, had won a Vanier Cup in 2005 and had a storied history. But at the time in, 2010, 11, and 12, Laurier wasn't at the top of the OUA. And in fact, when we got there in 2013 as a staff, the cupboards were fairly bare. So it was pretty much a rebuild, and we decided to go with a youth movement in that 2013 year with a vast cultural change in terms of process and work ethic. And it transitioned that those freshmen that got experience playing in 2013 got to stand on stage and accept the Yates Cup in 2016.
You've had some great coaching inspirations, as you've said, with Michelle Cameron, Courtney Shrimpton, Greg Marshall as well at Western. What are some of the things that you've taken from all these stops that you've been on and these people that you've had to look up to, I suppose, and turn that into some of your philosophy, perhaps?
Yeah, I think you just kind of no one's reinventing the wheel. I feel like you, as anyone in any field, you're cherry picking from other people that you respect and things that you like, but you're also at the same time thinking of things that you don't like that they do, so that if you're ever in a position of power, you can already have that checklist of what I want to do and what I don't want to do. So as you mentioned, great mentorship here with Coach Shrimpton and Coach Michelle Cameron in my time here. And then I truly say at Western, Coach Larry Haler my first 2 years, and then Coach Greg Marshall my last years. I had two of the best U Sport coaches ever. So, I would like to say I'm a combination of all of them. Courtney Shrimpton, I remember his energy. He was a former, obviously, McGill receiver, and he was energetic with us players. He was flying around the field. He was running around. Michelle Cameron, you could just see the passion when he spoke to us pregame or after a practice. You could see the passion and how much he cared about us and our success. And then similarly with Coach Haler and Coach Marshall, I would take stuff from them daily.
Looking at it from all the different aspects, so you've been engaged with it. What are your thoughts on the Canadian football landscape right now? What's the state of things? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I'm excited by it. I would say we've got more distractions these days. Like when I was playing, there was no Netflix, there was, no social media, all of this. So going out to a game, whether it was a hockey game, a basketball game, a football game, was kind of what you did on a weekday night or a Saturday afternoon. Nowadays, there's so many other things to pique people's interest. So I would say the viewership and the attendance isn't quite what it was, but the quality of the athletes, the training for 12 months that these athletes do, sports are being played at a higher level than they ever have. So that excites me. In terms of the Canadian Football League, we're seeing great youth sport talent going up to that level. And as I mentioned earlier, the position I played, quarterback, now starting to see Canadian quarterbacks, make names for themselves is great.
Looking back on the journey this far, whether it be Guelph, St. Andrews, Western, wherever it might be, anything else that you're kind of reflecting on at this point that you'd like to add?
I would say, like I mentioned, when young men make a decision to come to our university, make it less about the place and more about the people. So although this is an amazing place and the facilities continue to get better and better every time I come here, my fondest memories are the people. Right. Everyone I've mentioned, starting with Donovan Bennett, including Courtney Shrimpton and everyone else, it is the people I remember the most. Coming back to campus today, sure, it's neat seeing the different buildings and the new facilities and all of that. But when I'm in these buildings, I'm thinking of the people I was once in them with.
My thanks to Michael Faulds for coming on the podcast today. We recorded that episode in the Class of 1954 archives on campus, where there are several artifacts from football teams of the past, many of them successful. But with that win in the Golden Horseshoe Bowl, Michael was the facilitator for a team that really elevated the status of the Saints varsity program and set the tone for decades of success that followed. And to think, he may not have even returned to Canada if not for a fellow Andrian, his friend, Donovan Bennett. Don't forget to check out that episode as well, available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm John Sandom. Until next time, thanks for listening to Beyond the Gates.